This weekend, we get rid of the cold air. That will be nice. Getting heat in this thing will make everything more enjoyable to work on. We got the hole to the outside. You see this guy right here, that would have been a mistake. This was originally roughed in following the manual's instructions. The bracket has a 24 on center hole pattern. These walls are 16 on center. The manual shows, when that's the case, to line up just one of the sides with a stud and then use basically like a sheetrock anchor or another way of mounting on the other side so that you pick up a solid stud on one side. If you do that, 16 on center, you end up having the hole be basically intersecting the stud that's right here. I'm glad I didn't cut that, because if I had cut that, I would have found that there was going to be a stud right here. So instead, we moved it over so that the hole is in between the two studs. And I'm going to add mounting holes that's a 16 on center so that this thing is held rock solid by the studs. I think that that's going to work great.
I want to drill these new holes with the same diameter that exists on the mounting plate. This way, the mounting hardware will match up perfectly. It's a great feeling when everything lines up exactly as you intended. These custom mounting hole locations were a good idea.
Alright, so you said go bottom first?
Yes.
Okay.
The heater unit attaches to the mounting plate quite simply. It's got 4 screws on each corner. And with a little teamwork, it's a breeze.
Push it in a little bit, outward a little bit, right there.
There's a thermocouple on the bottom of the heater. Basically, when the pilot light is lit, it heats the thermocouple, which will signal the valve to stay open, allowing gas to flow. When the pilot light goes out and the thermocouple cools down, it'll signal back, closing the valve, preventing unburned gas from being released. Now that we have the heater mounted, we need to work on the intake and the exhaust pipes. And for that, we need the wall thickness. I gotta put gloves on every time I pick up the metal piping. Even the poor thermometer's cold.
We gotta trim the pipes down so that when we squeeze it all together from this side to the outside, this cap pulls everything nice and tight and allows for a good seal on both the intake and the exhaust.
We used a multi-tool to cut the pipes first. This ended up being a bad idea. The vibration of the saw on the pipe ended up separating the weld line that held the pipe together. There's no instructions on how to cut it, so we thought that this was going to be an easy way, and it was. But we ended up having to get another pipe, and then we ended up using tin snips to cut that new pipe, and that worked just as well. We inserted the pipes into the back of the unit, and the next thing we had to work on was bringing propane to the heater. I set up a workstation in front of a mister heater so that I could warm up some of the metal components, making it much more enjoyable to handle with my gloves off. Because the days are so short in the winter in Alaska, you spend half your workday under headlamp. I kept the can of pipe dope on my inner layers so that it stayed warm throughout the day. And then once put in front of this workstation, each joint that I put the pipe dope on, I had pre-warmed so that everything when mated didn't go together with icy pipe dope. you want to make sure that any swage fittings are clear of debris. They're not meant to have any pipe dope in them. We noticed that the heater wasn't putting off heat like it was earlier. Our suspicion is because it was so cold that the pressure in the tank was decreasing. The boiling point of propane is close to -40, and we were getting close to that. In an effort to increase the heat, we put the full bottle of propane on, and we got a little bit more heat out of that one.
All right, so we weren't able to get the heat finished because there was a defect in the new unit that we bought. So we're setting up camp upstairs in the loft, and to make things a little warmer on us, we're gonna set up a tent on top of our bed, and that should keep us nice and cozy.
Having the tent around us will give us a little bit more warm environment to sleep in. On top of that, we both have down sleeping bags, a couple of down blankets, and some dogs to pile in there with us. I think Tristan actually used 2 down sleeping bags this night. She put her sleeping bag inside of one of my sleeping bags, and then on top of that, put a down blanket. She admits to being comfortable.
All right, guys, it's been a couple days, and we've been troubleshooting this Escabie 17,000 BTU unit. It's a direct vent propane heater, no electric hookup, and it's been giving us a real problem. We've noticed no spark. This is fresh out of the box. I opened it up. I took this face plate off here. 2 screws, one on either side, and a backing nut. They look like this. We took 1 screw off this front, which looks like some sort of heat shield here, and it exposed the piezoelectric wire, or the cable that goes from the button all the way down to where it's mounted into where the pilot light lives. First thing I realize is where it's screwed in by the pilot light, it was loose and can be rotated by hand. As soon as I touched it, it was already wiggly. So it definitely wasn't mounted to the point where it was going to be solidly in a good spot for that spark to hit. Where's the spark issue happening? We followed the cable up, and I noticed that whoever put this together, they wrapped the wire here. This feels right here like a joint or an intersection of 2 cables, and it's wrapped in masking tape. And when pressing the piezoelectric igniter button, this is sparking onto the chassis of the unit. And so the spark never actually makes it down to where the pilot light is. It's grounding through the chassis unit. I grabbed it with my hands and moved that area out away from the chassis so that it's not shorting on that anymore. Press the igniter, and immediately we have spark by the pilot every single time I push the igniter button. With the piezoelectric, that's a very high voltage application, and so the insulation that you need from that conductor to another conductor is really, really important. The masking tape over the joint or damaged part of the wire is certainly going to have a problem if it's resting up against the metal chassis, and we just proved that. Whoever did this as a final checkout when they're putting their unit out the door, this is pretty bad quality. This has been 2 days of really cold weather. It's been -30, -20 last couple of days, and it would have been really great to have this unit up and running when I expected it to.
We found a small piece of heat shrink, and we're going to use that to isolate the wire. Heat shrink is an insulator, and when you apply heat to it, it shrinks. keeping it in the location of the wire that you're trying to insulate. And that makes it great for this type of application.
All right, so I think the tip is good and hot. Doesn't need to be crazy hot for this stuff, but just hot enough to apply a little heat.
Usually the best way to apply heat shrink is with a hot air gun. I don't have one of those. In a pinch you can use a soldering iron, but I don't have one of those either. So we got creative, and with a couple of tries, we got it to work.
There it goes. All right. We got the pilot lit. Oh, I can already feel the heat coming off of it just with the pilot light on it. It says to hold the pilot button down for 30 seconds if it's your first time lighting it up. That's gonna help kind of heat everything up. But once everything's warmed up and lit, and then you turn it off and turn it back on, it can be faster. It could be about 10 seconds. So I see the pilot lit still. We've done a couple cycles of that. It's still really cold out, so I'm giving this a chance to warm up a bit. We've had the pilot go out a couple times. I've lit it. It's lighting every time I hit the igniter now. And we're starting to see flame on both sides of the pilot, which this unit has a pilot on either side. It's not a one-sided pilot. So that's good. Here we go. All right, we're lit. Woo! I'm gonna keep it on low for a couple minutes. It did a little woo. Let it heat up, and then we'll turn it up to high and see how much heat we can get off of it.
It's rolling like thunder.
It is making some concerning woofing noises. So you can see down the pilot light, you can see all the burners lit up. It's not making that whooshing sound anymore. It seems like it's heating up.
If you want to follow the development of this cabin, check out the playlist Making Montana. For other Alaskan adventure videos, check out the YouTube channel Wicked Alaska. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Thanks for watching.